Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his Monday guest and good friend of the channel, Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm a little, episode one was some tough medicine. I hope everybody paid attention. I think we both think the Fed's decision on Wednesday will be very telling. But what I wanted to ask you as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's been doing great things and taking risk capital and going for it for multiple decades, given where we are today, how does Greg Dickerson manage risk, consider risk, and also look for opportunities? Because this is a very interesting time. So I'm curious what you're doing.
Yeah. So what's risk management? That's preservation of capital, right? Don't lose money. So when you're thinking about risk management, and I'm in a very, very different position now than I was, before earlier in my life in terms of, how I manage risk and the risks I would take and those types of things. But, for now, what I want to understand is from a global macro standpoint, where are we headed? What are the, downside potential? What's the upside potential? Where are the opportunities? Where there's problems, there's opportunities. And you want to be in a position from a cash standpoint, from a liquidity standpoint, to take advantage of opportunities. So regardless of what asset class you're in, whether it's markets, crypto, real estate, businesses, companies, there's different ways to take advantage of different opportunities in those environments. So what I look for in a declining market, in a risk environment, is how can I take advantage of opportunities in real estate and business without using capital? How can I use my intellect to take advantage of opportunities and work out creative deals and structure them in a way that I'm not risking capital, so that I've got my nest egg? And again, that's what kept me alive in 2008 and 9. I had cash and I had intellect. So what I did was I put cash aside and kept it ready for opportunities to deploy as markets, collapsed. And then I used my intellectual capital to create opportunities and, start other businesses. For instance, restaurants and retail were failing, back in 2008 and 9 because the high end started pulling back, which will happen again. The high end goes first. So what I did was I went in and took over empty restaurant spaces and put, businesses in there with no money really, because landlords were struggling to get tenants. And this same thing applied today after the pandemic, where you could go into restaurants or retail stores, take them over with no money out of your pocket, and, maybe a little bit just kind of redo the space or something. But landlords were cutting all kinds of good deals, rent, abatement and deferrals and, things like that, and let you get up and running, before you start paying any kind of real rent. So you could take advantage of those types of environments, fully turnkey, fixtured spaces from a retail and a restaurant standpoint, because operators just closed and left everything there. So you can look for advantages like that. And in real estate, you look for distressed. Okay, when market flips and inventory builds and sellers can't sell, then you can do creative financing deals and subject to and lease options and all kinds of different strategies there, joint ventures, to take advantage. There's always people that have capital they're looking to deploy. So you want to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities. And then when it comes to markets, whether it's stocks or now crypto, which started in 08, 09, I didn't really know anything. It was really Bitcoin. I didn't know anything about it back then, but, you can now understand where markets have gone and how they've reacted to economic climates. And you can, look for those lower entries when markets sell off, and then look for those exits as markets come back and kind of redeploy capital in and out. So, you become more of a swing investor trader during these times versus long-term, unless you can get those long-term plays when you get those big macro sell-offs in the markets, which potentially could come, if and when the Fed does take action.
So let me try to summarize what I think I heard you say. One is in kind of a down market or bear market, whatever you want to call that. Basically, what you did last time and what you would do now is you stack cash, which you and I have been talking about for a while. Cash is not trash. Cash is an opportunity, all that stuff. So perfect. That ties with our past discussions. And then what you're really talking about is taking your experience or your intellectual capital and using that to get into deals with zero or very little capital. Maybe you're redoing a space or something, and then you're just plugging and playing someone else. So let's take that restaurant example. Just if I can kind of summarize what I said. So restaurant A shuts down. Space is empty for 3-4 months. The landlord who owns the building gets nervous. You reach out to them somehow, some way, and you say, hey, I want to do a creative lease, put it in this entity, give me 90 days free. Again, you organize the lease. It's good for you. And then you connect with another kind of restaurantrepreneur, whatever they're called, who's going to plug in is going to pay you the delta, that kind of thing? Like you're going to get a spread on the lease or something?
No, this would be as an operator. So you
Oh,
do
an
an operating
operator.
business and you put an entity in there. But yeah, you could do that where you could go in and creatively, structure the deal where you find an operator and you bring somebody in and let them do that, but you could do it as an owner operator as well. You're doing it yourself.
Got it.
Another thing is balance sheet. So, you can use your balance sheet to take advantage of deals. Let's, talk about commercial, multifamily real estate. There's people out there that, have deals and, have everything else, but they don't have a balance sheet to qualify for the loan, whether it's a development deal or, value add or whatever. So if you've got a balance sheet, you've got cash reserves and you've got, the ability to understand the deal, you can just come in and be a loan guarantor, key principal in that deal. And you can get yourself into deals that way just by being a balance sheet person, and you don't have to do anything else. So a lot of different ways to take advantage. But the biggest thing is, where a lot of people make mistakes is they think they have to be in deals. They think they have to constantly be doing deals. They constantly got to deploy capital. There's a time when it's better to have cash on the sidelines waiting for opportunities and, not feeling like you have to rush in to do a deal just because, inflation, my money's going to, get devalued due to inflation, this, that, and the other. And that's really not a reality, right? And people will make bad decisions and get into bad deals just because they feel like they need to be doing a deal and they feel like they're losing their dollars, losing value against inflation and all that kind of stuff. It's all relative, right? You want to make sure you're in the right deals. You want to save that capital, because what happens every time you deploy cash into something, you're like, a better deal comes along and you wish you had the cash. So those are the things that would happen to me early in my career. I'd get a little chunk of cash and I'd see a deal. I'd go jump in it because I felt like I was going to miss, or this opportunity wasn't going to last. And I would just do these, things and use up all my cash reserves. Then something would come along and I'd be like, I need the cash. And I'd have to go scramble to get it,
Yeah.
So
I think that's wise advice. It does seem like there's a lot of folks that are kind of addicted to the deal. And it's always a race to the next one. And like you said, sometimes it's okay to slow down, do nothing, stack cash, and wait for the environment to tell you what's really going on. I think that's wise advice.
Yeah. And understanding values, because other things is, the other mistake that a lot of people make that haven't gone through these cycles that we've been through, really before the last 10 to 12 years, is understanding that, things don't always just go up indefinitely. Markets correct, real estate, stocks, crypto, markets correct, and you go through these cycles. And, the whole diamond hands thing, doesn't always work in perpetuity. It's worked well in a nascent asset like crypto and Bitcoin, because it is such a young space that, number has just gone up, but it started at zero, so is real estate. But if you got in last year at the peak, well, you're in trouble. But if you got in 6 months before that, well, you're broke, you break even. If you got in the bottom of March 2020, you've got a 10X right now, even though the market's corrected. So that whole just buy and hold forever, it's always going to go up and it's just going to be worth exponentially more, and the Kathy Woods mentality of, innovation is always going to be worth exponentially more. What she's missing is innovation always becomes obsolete. The next new innovation always replaces the old innovation. So you can't bet just on innovation and say that in 5 years, this innovation technology company is going to be worth 10X because it's innovation. No, those are emerging technologies and they always become obsolete. Albums to 8-track tapes, to cassette tapes, to CDs, to the 80 gig iPod, to now the iPhone, and now, NFTs. I mean, it's always evolving and changing, and things will, become obsolete down the road. So you have to understand that. What's the life cycle of a technology? What's the upside? And then you have to be okay with exiting at some point and then redeploying in something new to compound. And the big, what's funny is, like, especially people that aren't used to the investing world and are just getting into the last 3 or 4 years or the last 10 years, they're so afraid to sell now. What if it goes up after I sell? I'm like, so what?
Who cares?
Real estate I've bought and sold over the years that is worth twice as much now as I sold it for back then, and I made twice as much or even infinite returns back then. Who cares? That's not what matters. What matters is what are you profiting? A profit's a profit. You never lose money making a profit. And then what have you redeployed that into to compound it? Versus what you could have done if you just sat there and hold. Sometimes that equation works out and sometimes it doesn't. And, let's take the Grant Cardone case study. He deployed capital into his first little deal and, ultimately multiplied that into, more and more bigger deals. And, there's other case studies where people have taken things, didn't sell, but they refinanced as values went up and pulled equity out and redeployed the equity, things like that. So the big thing is, don't feel like you have to do a deal. Don't feel like if you exit a deal, I'm going to miss this upside if I'm never going to sell because I'm going to miss the upside. Well, sooner or later, you're going to miss the upside and you're going to be on the backside like we are now. It may come back eventually, but there's no guarantees that markets are going to get back to where they were, crypto is going to get back to where it was, or that real estate's going to keep going up every year. It has, over time, but there's also been those 15-year cycles where it drops down and it takes 10 to 15 years to come back, just like after the dot-com bubble.
Yeah. Wise advice, man. This has been a great conversation. I actually feel better. Video number 1, I was a little scared. Video number 2, I feel much, much better. Thank you for that. How can people follow you?
Yeah, gregdickerson.com, all my YouTube channel, social media. A lot of people didn't know I'm on Twitter, so you can connect with me on Twitter as well. But all that's on gregdickerson.com.
Thanks, buddy.